Hey, Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater here at NAMM 2025 in Anaheim, California. We're at Marshall with our friend Steve. It's great to see you, buddy.
Yeah, great to see you too. Thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely. So we have something cool for you to check out here. I actually had a sneak preview of these a while back, and we've been talking about them, but now they're real.
Yes.
Tell us what we're looking at.
Okay, so these are the new Marshall modified amplifiers. And the general idea, as you're probably well aware, like Marshall amps were always modified through a certain period of time, for more gain, for more features. And we decided to take two of the most modified and classic Marshalls out of our range, which is the JCM800 and the 1959 Plexi, and basically modify it ourselves, which I think is something people have wanted us to do for a long time. And interestingly enough, actually, Marshall have actually been modifying amps for decades for artists. We just never made it public.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what kind of modifications are we seeing in these amps?
Okay, so I'll start with the 2203. It can be a bone stock 2203 if you want it to be, with all the switches onto bypass. But there's 3 additional switches below the controls. And the middle one I'm going to start with, because it's going to make more sense with the other two. It's a 3-way toggle switch, and it's basically an OD switch. In the middle position, it's bypassed. It's regular JCM800. Position 1 gives you additional gain, and then position 2 gives you additional gain and clippings, which is basically even more gain. Okay, so it's funny because a lot of people expect a JCM800 to be higher gain than it actually is.
Right.
Because a lot of the time they're listening to those records and it's probably boosted with a pedal or something like that. So we've kind of given that feature built into the amp now.
Right.
And then the other 2 switches, there's a tight switch, which basically shelves low end, kind of gives you a cut, which is kind of handy when you're adding the extra gain, because sometimes you've got too much gain going through, the low end can get a little bit flubby, particularly if you detuned the guitar or something like that. So that's a useful feature. And then the final one is the mid shift control, which is actually more of a mid boost actually. So it kind of changes the general character of the amp, whereas a regular 800 can be a little bit scooped depending on how you dial it in. So if you want more of a vocal mid range, then that switch is for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So that's the kind of things that people do
Yes.
to their 800s, and so having them right here and authentic from Marshall, super cool.
Yeah, that was the general idea. And like I said, we've done modifications for artists for years. Like Randy Rhoads came into the factory in 1980, and we did the Cascade mod for him. We've done stuff for all the big hitters, people like Slash and all those guys. And it's just one of those amps. It's a workhorse for most people, but a lot of people like to tinker with them and do things. So we thought we'd give people the Marshall guarantee when it's done in house, if you know what I mean. That you're not going to get something back from a backstreet modifier and it comes back and it's kind of ruined. We've all heard the horror stories.
Right.
And then we've done a similar thing with the 59, which is at the bottom. So again, the 1959, a classic Marshall, been on, ridiculous amount of records. Again, if you want it to be, you can get a regular 1959 sound out of this. But the first feature, which I'll talk about, is the one that most people wish it had, is a master volume. So with these, the Plexi style amps, the only way to get any gain out of them originally was to turn the thing up. And when you've got 100 watts, it gets really loud.
It's loud.
Yeah, so we've got a pre-tone stack master volume, which is kind of sounds like an unusual choice, but when we were voicing the amps and kind of A-Bing them, we found that the pre-tone stack retained all of the fatness of the tone when playing at lower volumes, which we thought would be more useful for everyday players. We've got the bright cap on a switch now. So again, if people play these amps on a cleanish sound, sometimes if you're on the high treble channel, it's kind of bright, especially with a Strat.
Right.
So you can remove the bright cap completely depending on your taste. And then the other 2 switches, they work in conjunction with each other. There's an overdrive on and off. Once that's engaged, the second switch gives you 2 modes of overdrive. There's one, setting 1 is like a clipping diode, and it gives kind of a real woody character. It gives you a little more gain, but it kind of rounds off the low end, takes in a little bit of the highs as well, kind of similar-ish to those famous green kind of pedals that sometimes people use.
Right.
It's not quite that, but it's kind of closer to that sounding characteristic. But then position 2, it's a transistor-based kind of way of clipping the signal. So it's more compressed, it's more overdrive, but it kind of retains the width still. You still got all the lows and the highs, so it kind of sounds more like the amp would naturally, but it's kind of fully saturated.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Man, I can't wait to plug into these. I mean, I played through the prototypes, but I can't wait to play through the finished thing.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I think people are really excited by these, particularly, you know, if they've always wanted this style of amp, but they just think, well, it's just too loud, or, you know, or again, people might think, well, it doesn't do quite enough gain for me, or it doesn't do this and that. This is going to be way more flexible, and the idea wasn't just to add more gain, it was just to make it more usable, especially with that master volume.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Fantastic. Well, congratulations on these. We've been excited about these for a while, and now to actually see them come to fruition and get ready to head out into the hands of players, super fun.
Yeah, no, thank you. And obviously, we're so excited that you guys are excited about these too. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate your time today, and thanks for giving us the tour.
Cheers. Thank you.
You bet. And thank you for joining me here at the Marshall booth at NAMM 2025. For full information, you know where to go, sweetwater.com, or contact your Sweetwater sales engineer. I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater.